Alright, let's get this started. Alright, welcome one, welcome all. Thanks for coming by this live stream. Today I am going to be flatting this picture of Black Cat, which was inked by DevGear. I nabbed this one off of my club, the Color Me Club. And the reason why I chose it was not only does it look pretty good, but it's also pretty simple, so I can be able to get through this demonstration nice and quick. Now, this is the image taken straight into Photoshop, straight from the download. So what I am going to do, first of all, is I'm going to check to make sure that the image mode is set to RGB color, which it is. So we're all set there. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to prep these lines before I take them any further. And what I do is I adjust the levels of the lines. So when I adjust the levels, I go to Image Adjustment Levels, or Control L for short. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take out all shades of gray in between. So you'll see as I move this slider, it becomes a little bit darker as I move the left edge inward. And then it will become a little bit lighter as I move the other slider. And what this creates is an image where the pixels are solid. There is no anti-aliasing between the pixels. They are just straight up black and white. Now you'll see that because of limitations with the software, you'll see some pixels that are gray, and there's an easy way to fix this. Just select your color wand, and for your color wand settings, let me zoom in on this. Make sure you have anti-alias, contiguous, and sample all layers turned off. So what this does is anti-alias makes sure that there's no fading between the edges, so you don't get any errant shades of gray. And contiguous, what that does is it makes sure that all of whatever color you pick is selected across the whole canvas. So let me just do a quick demonstration. If I do contiguous, and if I select right here, for example, it only highlights this part of the nose where it's black. But when I uncheck it, it now selects all the black in the image, and since I have the tolerance set to 0, it won't pick up any shades of gray, not even close shades of gray. It's just going to pick up solid black and nothing else. And then what I do is, after it's selected, I then separate it from the background layer, and to do that, the shortcut key for that is just Control J. So, now I have two layers that appear right there, and if I make the background layer invisible, you see that I just have this layer right here, which is just solid black. So I didn't need to do any of the other methods people use. I didn't have to set the layer mode to multiply. I just have a very simple, straightforward layer that is black and alpha channel and nothing else. So the lines are now prepped. Now you may be wondering why I have the lines set so they have no shades of gray in between. I mean, it makes sense that you want them to blend a little bit, but when you work at high resolution, it doesn't really matter, and you'll see why I do this later on. And it's expressly because it makes it easier to fill in, so I can actually use the paint bucket tool, and I don't get what they call halos. I don't get these little white streaks around the edges because the paint bucket doesn't reach into those shades of gray deep enough. It's kind of complicated, but those of you who have been coloring for a while probably know what I'm talking about. And what I'm going to do for flatting is I'm going to be working entirely with tools that do not have anti-aliasing. So what most people do when they start flatting is they will choose their color, so I'll choose a skin tone right here, and they'll just go into, let me set it to 100% opacity and flow here. So we'll just go into it normally like this, you know, just fill it in like that. But here's the problem, is when they do that, they get anti-aliasing around the brush edges. And when you get anti-aliasing like that, it will create halos when you start selecting the flats and adjusting the flats. So you do not want those. If you want to use the brush tool but don't want anti-aliasing, you'll see there's no option up top. What you have to do is you have to go into the brush pull-down menu and set it to the pencil tool. So I'm going to set it to pencil tool, set the mode to normal, and there, I have something like that. And another thing that I prefer, this isn't necessary, but I like to have it so it's not pressure sensitive when I work with a tablet, because, you know, if you work with a tablet, if you press really lightly, you get these really narrow strokes. If you press really hard, you get these really big strokes. But I don't need that. When I'm flatting, I just turn off the shape dynamics, and when I go to the brush tip shape menu, I turn the spacing all the way down, so I get some pretty good accuracy. So it's going to be that large all the way through. So that way I'm not painting from the center of where my cursor is. I'm instead painting by gauging where the edges of the brush are. So I'm just following the edge of that brush all the way around. It's my personal method of doing it. It's what I'm comfortable with. It's not a necessity for others. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around like this. And I'm going to make sure that I'm just going to paint around the edges like this. Now, you see I went over a little bit right here. And to erase it, just do what you would normally do. Select the eraser tool. But you'll see up top here where it says brush. Change the mode from brush to pencil. So again, you're not working with anti-aliased lines. You want those straight lines. So let's select that. And there we go. So now I have my brush, or my pencil tool, and my eraser tool set, ready to go. So I'm good to rock and roll on this. So I can just go into it, and if I go over, I can erase it accordingly. But once I get the edges done, and I'm pretty confident that nothing's going to spill over into any other areas, I can then just select my fill tool right here, so the paint bucket tool, and I make sure, let me just zoom in again on this, that I have contiguous turned on and all layers turned off. Now let me show you what happens when I turn contiguous off. And I want to make sure all layers are on. Sorry. All layers on, anti-alias off, contiguous. You want it on, because if you have it off, it will paint all areas in the canvas that are this color, which is the alpha. So it'll paint all of the alpha instead of just what it's touching, basically. So now the whole image has this skin color tone to it. I don't want that. So when I check contiguous, it keeps it confined within this area, so it, I guess we can say, it respects the borders that you have already set forth. Now you'll see that I have 3 layers here so far, and let me name these real quickly. I'm going to name this one the lines layer. I'm going to lock it, and I'm just going to change it to a different color, so blue, for example. So I right-click there and set it to blue. So that way I know that that is my layer for lines. Don't touch it. I don't need to touch it. And then these will be my fills layers right here. I don't name them because they constantly change. You'll see why. So I'm just going to fill in a little bit more here. So around her forehead, and I just fill that in like that. And you'll see that with the aliased lines, the solid black lines without any blending in between them, I'm able to fill it in really nicely. And when I make the lines invisible, I have these really nice solid fills that go right up to the pixel, so there aren't going to be any halos that appear in it. And now let's say I want to move on to something else. So I'll come to the skin tones later. Let's go to the hair real quickly. Now Black Cat has white hair. Now most people just set it to flat white like that. And if you want a really good vibrant silvery white, actually go with a very light desaturated cyan color like this. So halfway between cyan and blue. So about right here. So when we get to this, it'll look a little bit more vibrant. So anyway, if you keep painting within this layer and you come to the edge right here, the edge where the hair meets the skin tones, you'll have to be careful because you'll see it bleeds over the fills that we already have in place. But instead of doing that, this is why I use 2 layers. So now the layer underneath, I select that, so when I paint, and then the paints go into the skin tones layer, they are behind it. So no matter how much I paint in here, it will not appear over the already established fills. This allows me to work a lot faster, use bigger brushes, and I don't have to worry so much about keeping everything in line over stuff that I've already done. So when it comes to the skin tones, I can just, bam, just go over it like that and not even have to care. And then once I'm done with the hair, instead of doing what most people would do, which would be, let me expand this real quickly so you can see. What most people would do is they would just create a whole new layer and then move it underneath and keep doing so until they have finished the image. And theoretically, you'd have dozens, if not hundreds, of layers if you did that, but what I've done is let me merge all these layers together by holding down Shift, selecting all the layers, and pressing Control-E to merge them into a single layer, is I will take the layers that I have. So I have this one with the skin tones, this one with the hair, and I merge them together, create a new layer on top, and then move it underneath. And then get back to doing the fills. And I keep going back and forth like that, of creating a fill, and then what I call committing it, where I merge them together, then create a new layer, and move it underneath the existing layer, so on and so forth. So I'm never really battling with the existing flats that I've already put in. I don't have to worry about them at all. I don't have to worry about painting over them. Now, fortunately for myself, I've created a shortcut key using the Actions menu, so all I have to do is just push F2 right here, and if you look carefully, it automatically merges the layer upwards by doing the same process I showed earlier, but it's in a shortcut key form using the Actions in Photoshop. I can go into more on that in another tutorial, as they are very helpful to have, very good to have, and they are a staple of a lot of what I do, but this is just going to be on flat, so we'll just keep this focused on the flats. So I just go like this, paint in my layer, and I don't have to worry about it overlapping the lines. I mean, if we were to reduce the opacity of the line art, you'll see that my fills are bleeding into the lines, even though the overlap mandates that that should be skin tone, not hair color, but we'll get to that in a second, so let me just finish this one up quickly. Now I can't really see what I'm doing. If I'm missing spots on the hair, I probably won't know it. So what I can do is I'm just going to merge the layers together. I'm going to select my color wand. Sample all layers is turned off, contiguous is off, anti-alias is off. That's exactly how I want it, because then when I select this fill, this hair color, it selects all the hair color that I have already set in the image. So then I just go to my image adjustments, hue saturation, and if I reduce the lightness of this and maybe even increase the saturation a little bit, it is now a lot more visible than it was before. This isn't going to be my final color, but for the time being, since this is much more visible against this gray and white alpha background that I have, I'm just going to run with it. So let's just keep on going around the edges like this for a few more minutes. Because once you have all this set in place, it's very straightforward just how to flat it. Shoulders. Let's see what we got here. Kind of circle right there. And I'm not going to make this perfect right off the bat. It's going to have a few flaws to it, just for the sake of getting through this quickly. And areas right here where you have a lot of small details, one thing that I like to do is, this is why I have my pressure sensitivity turned off, so it's all just one uniform brush size. As I go around, it doesn't shrink when I reduce the pressure on the pen, on the tablet. Is that if I get things like this, like kind of a fuzzy object on top of hair where there are going to be a lot of brush strokes that I have to work with, a lot of line art, I go like this, and then I just press E on the keyboard to jump to my eraser, and then I just jump between the eraser and the pencil like so, going around one edge, fixing the other edge where the previous stroke might overlap it. And there we go. So where there's overlapping, just erase it away and then go back into it. So I'm just jumping back and forth between the pencil and the eraser tool. Yeah, here we go. This should be good. I'm not going to try to fill in where all that detail is. Just wherever it feels good to fill it in. Note that when I choose between filling areas and brushing areas, it's all gut feeling. There isn't an exact science to it, it's just practicing a lot and doing this a lot and knowing which areas would work for the different tools. Because Photoshop comes with these tools, so use them. I also tell people not to use the undo command because it slows them down and it reduces their confidence with their brushing ability. But when it comes to the fill tool is very persnickety. It's very unpredictable, so I extend a good amount of forgiveness towards those who have to use the undo key when they use the fill tool. And it's the persnickety nature of the fill tool that drives people not to use it. And it's totally cool if people flat with just the brushes, but I do use the fill tool simply because it speeds up the process a fair bit, especially when you, at first, make the line solid black and white without any anti-aliasing in it. Alright, so let's just finish up all this right here and zoom out, see if I missed any areas. For the time being, I'll just call that good enough. I can go in, I can make fixes and changes later on. But yeah, normally I'd complete a whole image like this, so it's just the fills underneath the lines, but let's speed up this lesson a little bit and just skip the rest of the flatting process of this image, and let's just do something for the hair here. So, let's focus in here on my layers, and I'm going to create 2 new layers over the lines layer. Now I'm going to hold down the Alt key. What the Alt key does, when you hold it in between 2 layers, is it creates this icon where it looks like 2 intersecting circles. And when you click in between 2 layers, it links the layers together. So now, whatever I paint on top of or on this layer, on layer 7, is confined to the outlines that I have set in my lines layer. So, when I have this selected, I can paint, expand this. When I have that layer selected, I can paint as much as I want out here. I'm making strokes. So if I were to unlink them, you'll see that I'm making strokes out here, but when I link it, it'll disappear. And the reason why it disappears is because it is linked to the layer underneath it, whereas it is confined to the alpha channel, or the physical space, I guess we'll call it, of the lines layer. So now, by doing this, I'm physically painting over the lines, but if I toggle the visibility of this layer, layer 7, the lines come back. Because this layer's fills are technically separate. They are on top of the lines layer, but they are also confined by the outlines of the lines layer. You'll also notice that similarly, I have it set to have 2 layers, just like I have with the fills underneath the lines. And that's because I do the same process. I use my same action that I have set before. So once I fill in some lines like this, I can then commit it or merge it upwards, so layer 7 will become layer 8. And so now, those fills I just put in are now in the top layer. And now whatever fills I put into the one that showed up underneath it, which is now layer 8, now if I commit it, it appears above it as well. So, it's a really simple process of just painting some fills and then merging it upward, and then painting some fills some more and merging it upward again, painting some more fills, merging it upward. So I'm constantly merging fills upwards. Now the reason why I do this is most people think I'm erasing the lines. What I'm actually doing is I am coloring the lines using this method, and by keeping it all confined through the linked layer. And by doing it all in separate layers like this, I have a lot more control over what I do. So now let's just say hypothetically I were to finish up with all the lines for the hair. So just imagine that all those lines are now done around the hair, like so. Now let's say I want to move on to the skin tones. So I hold down Alt to bring up the eyedropper tool, and I take this layer, and if I were to not merge the layers upward, let's just see what happens if I forget to merge the layers upward and start painting. You'll see that I can start painting skin tone color where the hairlines are. And I don't want that, so I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to press my F2 key, which merges the layers upward because I have an action set to that. Note that's not default by Photoshop. You have to create that action yourself. And I'll show how to create that on a future tutorial. But for now, just merge the layer upward. And now, all these lines are on what is now layer 9. And on layer 10, if I were to paint here, it paints over the black, but where the gray is for the hair, it does not paint over it. So now I don't have to worry about painting over existing lines that I've painted over. And that's pretty much it. That is the process for getting these flats done. And once this whole process is done, I then take the lines, and I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to click and drag, and move it all the way to the top of the layers listing, just to make a copy of the lines, because once it's all done, I should have no black remaining. The whole image should look something like this, just solid colored fills. And since we're using the linked layers, the fills extend all the way to the edges. So it will come all the way out here to the edges. So you don't have to worry about, so carefully getting it accurately and precisely to the pixel. The fact that you have the layers linked right here makes sure of that for you. So technically you're flatting an image twice, but you don't have to be as accurate, allowing you to get the flats done a lot faster. Even though you have to do it twice, it is still a lot faster. So now that we have the gist of that down and out of the way, I'm going to finish up, do the rest of the image as so, and I am going to just narrate as I'm coming along here. Now, fortunately for you guys, I'm not a huge fan of the sound of my own voice. I'm more a fan of the music that I play in the background. So, not going to be too talkative throughout this whole process, allowing me to focus nicely on this. But if there are any important bits that I feel like reiterating, I will certainly bring it up. So, anyway, for those of you who have swung by and are starting to watch, thank you for coming by. So yeah, shout out to all the guys who are in the room with me. So yeah, I got calls for reducing the music, so there we go. Since I'm actually paying attention to the chat window now. So So yeah, guys in the chat, how's it going? Top of the evening to all of you. The villagers excitedly proclaim, "I can hear you!" Well, that's good, because I can hear me too. In fact, the poor guys downstairs trying to watch American Idol, they can probably hear me as well. The joys of the group living situation, yep. Now start from the top. I wasted so much breath on that. Well, yeah, I can reiterate it for the sake of proper education. And after all, in the years that I've been doing coloring and having flats passed on to me by other people, I got some pretty bad news for the flatters that I've worked with. It's not very good. And the key things that you want to remember, let me just zoom in here, is you want, zoom in even closer, in fact I'm going to zoom in with this right here to really drive the point home. So, see this right here? These are aliased lines, just solid edges, there's no blending between them. You want that, because if you have something like these lines right here, where they have fading around the edges like that, or even if you're just a hard edge brush like that, this fading, you don't want that. That fading is bad news. You want hard edges. You want super hard edges. You don't want there to be any blending between the pixels. And to do that, let's get this expanded out here. To do that, you set your tool from the brush to the pencil tool. So just simple as that. So let's go around and just finish up whatever else here. So yeah, guys in the chat window, you can hear me now just fine, right? And I hope I'm not breathing too much in my microphone this time around. I got it raised up a little bit, so it shouldn't be a problem, but if you do get that mouth breathing effect, please do speak up, because I was listening on one of the earlier streams that I did when I first got this headset, and it sounds terrible. I don't know how people were able to stay in that chat room for so long, how people were able to hang on, because I'll be honest, that's probably the most annoying sound in the universe. And that's saying something, because in that same live stream session, I played a 15-minute rendition of Rebecca Black's Friday, slowed down 500%. And I still contest that the sound of me mouth breathing into a headset is more annoying. If that isn't the definition of perspective, I don't know what is. Right, what I'm going to do here is a little trick that I like to do. So after I merge the layers together, let me expand this just a little bit. After I merge the layers together with the action I have set, so now they're all in a single layer, what I'm going to do is I like to do some rim lighting around the nose, but to do that, I just pick an obnoxious color to really illustrate my point. I'm just going to go around like this with this very unrealistic purple color. So under the nostril, around like that. Out around the mandible like this. There we go. Around here, it doesn't really matter. So now I have this, what looks like crazy face paint or something like that. And what this is actually going to do is I'm actually going to set this color. So I'm going to select, oh, missed a spot here. I know, let me OCD here for a second. You gotta wait so I can OCD appropriately. There we go. I'm gonna select the skin tone color I already had, and then I'm going to open up my color selector picker. I'm gonna set it something just slightly darker, like that. And then I'm going to select the color wand tool with the settings set so the tolerance is at 0, anti-alias is off, contiguous is off, sample all layers is off. So when I select this fill, it is now selecting that flat color that I have set for it, and since I have the foreground color set to the slightly darker variant of the skin tones, I'm going to hold down Alt and Delete, and what this does is it fills in the color that I have set to the foreground color, so I'm going to press Control-Delete to, or Control-D to deselect it, and now it's very, very, very subtle. I don't even think the Procaster is going to pick up this difference, but it is there. There is an edge between the colors right there. So normally you won't see that when you look at the flats, or even if you work at that straight off. So once you get that flatted, that's going to be very unnoticeable. But what it does is when you later on get into the shading phase, and when you start shading by selecting different fills and filling them accordingly, since these are separated, I can select this part right here, and then I can fill in around the nose without affecting the skin behind it. So I can get a good rim light there along the nose, or a good shadow underneath it, without the rim light or the shadow extending into the other part of the skin tone. So you'll see later that it gives me a really nice rim light effect around here, just by breaking it up like that. And where there are other elements, where skin tones and other things like outfits, wardrobes, fabrics, hair, you name it, if it overlaps, use a very similar but still different color. So I'm going to do a slightly different alternative color for the neck. So it's still the same skin tones color, but if you look really carefully, it has a very slight difference of just a couple shades. So that way when I shade the neck and I do the drop shadow being cast from the jawline onto the neck later on, I'll be able to make that drop shadow really quickly and not have to go back and erase over how it overlaps the jawline. It'll be separate. So by keeping everything separate like this, I'm able to work faster and work more accurately. So that's why I tell people, flats are the most important step to coloring an image. Because if you're given a bad set of flats, that can be a huge time waster, but a really good set of flats is not only accurate, it's not only on the color key, but it's also organized in a way that allows the colorist to work faster. So I'm able to do, if I were to spend, for example, an extra 1 to 2 hours on the flats, it might save me dozens of hours later on, depending on the complexity of the image that I'm working on. So it may seem a little bit tedious at first, but trust me, later on, once you get into those really complex, detailed images, there's nothing more vital than having a solid set of flats guiding the way. So let's just keep this going here. Gonna merge it up. Now, since I work by merging layers upward, I don't have to worry about the painting over existing lines. And if I did, for example, I'd have to worry about doing that by accident while doing the rest of the lips. But since it's in a layer underneath it, I'm going to merge it upward first. Since it's in a layer underneath it, Just go bam, really quick like that. Now again, it seems a little bit laborious to do all this layer management so early on, but again, take my word for it. It pays off when you get to the tail end of the flats, because you'll just be flatting all those small details and basically all those final things that you need to do. You'll be flatting those super quick. So let's see, let me check my reference that I have here. Says here, Black Cat, really lightish, warm green color for her eyes. Yep, so right now, even though I'm doing this off of my laptop, I do have my laptop set up to a second monitor, and it's kind of an oldish laptop, so it's churning on the RAM, having to do live streaming, iTunes, and a second monitor with Internet Explorer open on it all at the same time. So, pray that it soldiers on as well as it does. So once we get into more ornate details like eyes, the method of doing the flats that was illustrated earlier becomes a lot more streamlined. It makes a lot more sense when it comes to smaller details. You'll see why. Let's go around like that. And now I want to do the whites of the eyes. So merge them, merge them. Again, for the whites, kind of like what I said with the hair, I don't use solid white like that. I use a desaturated cyan color, just so I can eke a little bit more of a lively color out of it. Let's merge that one up. Let's pull the skin tones in like that. Now for eyelashes, I usually don't worry too much about them, since the line artist here, DevGear, did a really good job at capturing the essence of the eyelashes on his own. I don't have to do a whole lot. Even when I get to the shading step, I probably don't have to do anything with it. I can just go with something really, really dark. But also, if I leave these lines in place, it's just being really dark representations. That's right, that's a different color. Oh, what went wrong here? There we go. Yeah, so just leave them as really dark representations like this. It'll be just fine. So let's just finish that up. Just going to do something really quickly, just a little bit of housekeeping. Oh yeah, good enough. So yeah, let's get back to this. So around here it's going to be a little bit highly detailed. So again, this is why I like to have the fill or the paint bucket tool, the fill tool at my disposal. So I just go around, make sure the lines are nice and solid. And there we go. It should, nope, didn't work there. There we go. Takes a little bit of trial and error. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the layer alpha with this icon right here. So lock transparent pixels. And for her left breast, again, kind of like what I did with her nose, where I made it a different color, I am going to select a separate color. And since I have the alpha locked on that, I just paint in that new color. So now, if I were to select this later on, I have this part of her chest highlighting and this part highlighting separately. So therefore I can get some better shading around it without the shading I do on the left breast affecting the right breast. And yeah, that's pretty much it for her skin tones, so I am going to just finish up with these lines right here, coloring the lines. I saw that someone asked earlier in the stream, wondering if I was erasing the lines. I'm actually not erasing the lines, I am coloring the lines, because I have a copy of the lines on top of it. So with a copy of the lines on top of it, I'm able to reduce the opacity of it so the lines are still representative, but I can get some better blending between the elements so the lines aren't as prominent. So with fainter lines, it'll give it more of a painterly look to it, and it'll allow me to put in more details on my end as well, so I'm not constricted to the space limited by the lines. I can also paint underneath the lines as well. So yeah, let's just work from top to bottom on this now. So let's here for her eyebrows, I want them to be darkish gray like this. And let's go with it like that right there. Yeah, I changed my mind on what I was going to do there. That is her eyebrows, and then that's her skin tone color right there. Alright. That'll look better. So let's here, select that, merge it upward. I'm going to go with a really dark, slightly saturated purple for the eyelashes. Again, I use a dark purple instead of the color black. I never use the color black for anything, so I can just get a little bit more vibrancy out of it, even in the super dark spots. I want my dark spots to be vibrant as well. So everything must have color. So similarly, she would have a solid black mask. So I'm going to go with let's go with a cooler purple, mostly desaturated, about an 80% darkness right there. So merge it upward like that. And since I already have a lot of the fills done around this, in fact I have all the fills done around this, I can use a really large brush and just jump into it, just dive in and bam, like that. I don't even have to worry about the edges anymore. So I can just really quickly jump in and nail those fills, and then whatever lines are left behind, I just jump in and again, really quickly bang them out like that. So now it's getting to the point where we can visually see how this method, how this approach is speeding up the flatting process. Because even though it's a little bit strenuous, a little bit, what's the word, redundant seeming, now we're seeing how it's paying off. Had to undo all that because I selected the wrong layer and merged it upward, creating a massive error. Don't want to do that. Alright. There we go. That's what I want to do. So merge that one upward, and then merge that one upward. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this file really quickly. So going to my Save As prompts, just going to name it how it was when I downloaded it as a Photoshop file. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save as again. And I'm just going to put a _B, so I know that's version B. So I'm going to have 2 copies of this. And the reason why I do this is a precautionary measure. In case Photoshop were to crash and it were to corrupt the file, I would have a backup. So now every time I save the image twice. So hypothetically, if I were to save from this point onward, I would press Control S to do the normal save, and then Control Shift S for the save as, and I would select the other file. So now I just saved it twice. So now I'm backed up. This file is now free to crash and burn as badly as it wants to, and I will suffer no losses from it. Let's get this collar done out of the way. Alright, for those fluffy bits, I'm actually going to save that for later, because since they're such high detail, I find that it's easier to do the low detail and the small stuff first, and then high detail stuff like the fluffy stuff around her collar and around her arms and legs. That's going to be a little bit more difficult to do, so I save those for the end. So let's do this diamond here. Now I actually have a creative choice if I want to right now. Make it a diamond, make it a ruby, sapphire. So I'm thinking, I don't know. Chat room. Hey, chat room, wake up. Give me a gem choice. I'm waiting on the chat room to give me a gem choice. And don't say diamond. I'm not going to do diamond. Quickly. Emerald. Okay. Oh god, what color are emeralds? Green. Green. That's a good choice. It'd actually match her eye color. All right. I know that chat window just explodes with gem choices. All right. Emerald was first, so that's what I'm running with. Let's get this all filled in. Now there is no right order to fill in certain objects, but I do have preferences. I like to start out with objects that are closer towards the center of a mass, so I can work from the center, and then when I work my way outward, since I don't have to worry about overlapping lines and stuff when I merge them upward, I'm just able to work much faster. So I spend a good amount of time on the most central objects, getting it all right, and then all the other elements that are surrounding it are much easier to fill in. So let's get that set and merged, set and merged. So you'll see I'm just going around the fingers like this, and once I have the object filled, the adjacent objects would be much faster to fill in later on. So I'm going to be careful here, making sure it's nice and accurate and orderly in place. Alright. Alright, I see I made an error right here. I filled in this spot wrong, so let's get that fixed. Just erasing all that right there, because that's actually part of the finger, not a part of the gem. But what's also nice is that as you're working around high detail spots like this, since everything's all separated out and you have ultimate control, if you spot any errors, fixing those errors is no problem at all. Just jump to whatever layer needs to be fixed and you can just fix it right there. You don't have to worry about anything else around it. So yeah, don't mind me adjusting the headset. Okay. The emerald is now set. So yeah, let's get her glove down now. So similarly, a dark desaturated purple, never black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out the fingers into separate colors as well. So that way when I do the rim lighting on them, I can just select each finger individually and have greater control without having to worry about my paints or my fills overlapping into other fills. And I'll explain that later on when I get to the shading step, so let's keep on going right here. Filling all that white space. We got a single space of green right there. So yeah, once again, the shortcut key to access the eyedropper tool and quickly fill in those spots or quickly select those colors is the Alt key. So just hold down Alt and it automatically brings up the eyedropper tool. Well, let me rephrase that. Hold down Alt while using the brush or the pencil or the fill or the gradient or the God, what else? Lots of tools it works with. Basically any tool that uses the foreground color. Yeah. Let's get this edge defined. And similarly to what I did with her fingers, I'm going to do that with her forearm, with her forearm as well. So that when it comes to doing this area around here at the base of her forearm, I can get a good rim light around it and just be able to work more accurately. And for the color of the other arm, I'm just going to sample one of the existing black colors just to keep it a little more uniform, so I don't have to worry so much about so many different fill colors. Let's see, get that filled in. Let's get the lines set now, so I'm going to color the lines right here. So now I have colored lines. So yeah, chat window, I'm still depending on you guys for any sort of commentary on the audio quality. So now that I have my headset adjusted, please let me know if mouth breathing becomes an issue, because that was an issue in the last stream, and I don't want that to happen. It's a terrible noise. Blam. Color those lines. Alright, gonna want her arms separated from her shoulder. So the chat stream is now talking about diamonds right now, probably since I said no diamonds. And the reason why I said no diamonds is because I wanted the gem to be a focal point, and I felt that with a character whose color scheme is predominantly black and white, having a white diamond wouldn't stand out as much as another color would. So what's nice about Emerald is that it actually matches her eye color, so that it'll stand out, but it'll also kind of fit with the color scheme that's established already with the character. So whomever called out Emerald, that was a great choice on your part. So kind of like what I did with the nose and when I was doing the skin tones on her left breast, I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to fill this in normally. Different color, or slightly different color, not totally different color. Merge it. Let's get that going. Alright, try to interpret how these lines go. I'll go like this. So I have the torso separated out as well. It doesn't need to be perfectly defined around the hip area. I'm going to blend those together. So merge the layer upward like that. Pick a color for the legs, which, you know, give me the same color. So yeah, now it's all just a matter of finishing up the image now that I have the system in place. I also have to understand what's going on in these lines. When it gets to high detailed lines, it's very common for the colorist to not totally understand what's going on. Like around here, I'm a little bit confused as to what's going on here, but that's nothing against any of the artists. I take full responsibility for not knowing. Alright. Last little bit is this leg right here, so merge that layer upwards so I can paint behind it. So, get around the edges here where it's a little bit fuzzy, like that. Get around all that fuzz. And... So yeah, I got this image from the Color Me Club. It was under the inked versions of others' pencils gallery that I set up not too long ago. And yeah, this is an image that was created by a guy named DevGear. And I've done some of his stuff in the past before. He's a very good inker, and he's one of my favorite contributors to the Color Me Club. So whenever I go searching for an image to do for practice... Ooh. Whoops, alright. So whenever I go searching for an image that I want to do for practice from the Color Me Club, I usually go to one of his pieces. I just naturally gravitate towards it because he's got this really professional looking flair to it. I mean, not only does he have really good inking style, he also finds really good images to choose, and he's also judicious and dependable about getting permissions and stuff like that. So I can always depend on him to not only ink a really good image, but to also take the necessary precautions to make sure that it can be distributed accordingly for the practice of others. So for colorists like myself, he is an integral necessity towards augmenting my own portfolio and repertoire. Or in layman's terms, I love him very, very much. Merging that one upward. Nope, don't want to do that. There we go. Yeah, DevGear gets around. He's going to become something big if he keeps at it. So I'm glad to have him contributing so much to my club. You know, at least so that we can get some of his talent and contributions before he becomes too famous for his own good and forgets about us small people. Which, he better become too big and forget about us small people. I'm going to be really disappointed. So in about 15 years' time, he'll be looking back upon me as I wait in line to shake his hand for 4 hours at Comic-Con and tell him about, oh yeah, you know, you're that guy who contributed to my group all the time on DeviantArt, and I expect him, I demand him to look me in the eyes and go, DeviantArt? Oh, that's so passé. That's like, oh, from my infantile years. How dare you offend me by even saying that I belong to such a haggard location at one point in my illustrious career? If that doesn't happen, God doesn't exist. I am saying that right now. I will send out apology letters and complimentary batches of cookies to all the atheists I have ticked off in my life, and tell them, alright guys, you're right all along. Dev Gear is still a really nice guy with a level head on his shoulder who remembers and is quite reverent towards us small people, so you're right, God doesn't exist. That's exactly what's going to happen. Since that's already shaded, when I paint over the lines, I have to, again, define the outline of it, so I kind of have to play sort of an inker in that spot right there where it's all shaded in. So it's up to me to define the shape of the underside of the breast there. And if there's one thing I can attest to what art school does to you, you spend 75 grand for that degree, and the biggest thing you have to show for it is the ability to say breast without giggling. And yes, totally worth it. Now just do a quick recap. Since I'm merging layers so often, I am already, with just one character, up to layer 50 on my new layers listing. Now you'll see in the layers listing I only have 5 layers and a copy. But I have gone through 50 layers doing this, so that's why I swear by the method of merging layers together. Because it keeps my layer count nice and low, and since I'm doing this on a rather old laptop, I'm able to keep my memory in check as well, so I don't crash Photoshop so quickly. And I see people when they're doing flats, they'll do it in dozens of layers. I don't know how they do that. Actually no, let me correct myself. I know exactly how they do that because that's how I used to do it, but there's absolutely no going back once you get comfortable with this method because of just how much time it saves you and how much more orderly it is. So I tell people all the time, try to work with less layers than you think you need. And once you're happy, satisfied, or even just semi-satisfied with what you have, just merge layers together. So that way you're not completely burdening yourself. Let's get a quick time check on this. We've been going for just over an hour on this little tutorial thingy, And the chat window has already converted to ponies. Wow. You guys are going faster than the last time. And yes, Trozpen, it is on Netflix. Your timing is impeccable. Yes, it is on Netflix. And that was a huge deal. Well, no, let me rephrase that. Season 1 is on Netflix. Season 2 is going to be on Netflix in about a month. So once they finish their run in a couple of weeks. But you can also catch all the episodes on YouTube pretty easily. Now, you didn't hear that from me. I'm just saying it's there. I'm not saying that you should go to YouTube and actually watch them, because that's illegal. I mean, how deplorable that people would post copyrighted material on YouTube. Can't they think of the artists? All the people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into pulling that thing together? Thank God, if I keep at this, I might guilt trip you into going out to Target and buying the toys just to support them and say you're sorry. It's like, hey guys, I watched a couple episodes on YouTube. I feel really bad, so I went out and I got some pony toys out at Target. Are we cool? Are we cool? Oh, you doubt me. You doubt that's going to happen, but you're going to be at a CVS pharmacy one of these days, and you're going to see a bunch of MLP stickers on a rack, and you're not even going to be prepared. Your mind and body are not going to be ready for seeing it out in public like that, and you are going to feel that twinge of, I want it. And what do I have on there? Yeah, I can go with this. What were we talking about? We were talking about Pendulum a couple nights ago, and I got some of that here. Yeah, let's go with some In Silico. Here we go. Alright, so now that I have everything else done, these fuzzy parts right here will be done really quickly. Also, quick shortcut key, when you have the brush or the pencil tool selected, to increase or decrease your brush size is just the brackets. So those two punctuation keys right next to the P, well, at least on an American keyboard, right next to the P, two brackets, press them, it increases and decreases your brush size. Just a little good thing to know. And since I have all those other fills done, I can just, well, so you're not right there, but blam, just cover them up. Just get at them. And it doesn't need to be total perfection. I can fix up a lot of stuff later on. Oh, you see that? Just boom, how quickly that's done. I'm going to fill that in with skin tones just to even add a smidgen more detail to it. Let's see here. The ball of yarn, ball of yarn. Let's make that green as well. Let's go with a bluish green on it when the time comes. Grab that color. Oh my god, Dev Gear. Bless you and your super clean, concise, easy to use paint bucket on lines. Alright. So yeah, look at how absurdly fast I can get this done now. Since they're all separated out into their own layers, and since I don't have to worry about existing fills or covering them up, just bam, just go like that, super fast. Boom! To the pixel, to the furthest possible edge. These are as perfect of flats as they can get. I swear, if some commissioner handed me a set of flats that were this perfect, I would do that image for free. I would just be so happy to have flats like this given to me, not have to make them myself. I would just, I would be one fiscally irresponsible idiot. I'd be so happy. Alright, merging all those together. Crud. I'm debating a green ball of yarn, or let's make it a gray, just gray, so it doesn't stand out too much. I want the focus to be on the gem in her hand. A green ball of yarn would make the image a little bit more interesting, but it would take weight off of the gem in her hand, and that's what I want to be the focal point of the image. Let's save this, save as, so now I have a duplicate of it. And one thing I'm going to do is with the signature, I'm going to set the signature as kind of a ridiculous purple color, just so I don't forget about it. We'll come back to it later, and you'll see why. So let's see, I missed a couple spots right here, so let's go in and finish them up like so. There we go. And then last thing I gotta do is the sheet that she is sitting on. So I'll go with a very light pale green like that. So it's kind of a hospital linen green, but it should work. Something about going with a limited color scheme on this now, because, oh geez, totally messed up there. Alright. Merging them. Okay. So it seems like this image is going to be just green, black, and white. So what the limited flat palette allows us to do is put in some more dynamic lighting. So even though we just have black, white, and green for the flat colors all around, if I were to put in some blue or some pink lights in there, that lighting would be a lot more prominent throughout the whole image, since I don't have similarly colored fills underneath it for it to blend into and disappear. So if I have an image that's all, for example, purple, and if I were to put a yellow light into it, that yellow light would look a lot more intense because it is contrasted against the complementary tone of the purple in the image. So now that I have an image here where the most prominent, or the boldest color that I have is green, the complementary shade of green is red. So if I were to use a red, orange, warm purple lighting scheme, it'll really give the character a lot more pop, and it'll act as a form of contrast against the green, so that the already strong green in this image will appear even stronger. So not only will the gem stand out when you first see the image, but it'll pop out from the 100 by 50 thumbnail that appears on DeviantArt. So when you see that really small thumbnail, you're going to know that's a gemstone in her hand, and it's going to stand out. So yeah, we're going to go with a reddish, pinkish, violetish lighting scheme on this image, but pretty much the flats are now done. All I have to do is just come up with the background color, but I'll do that in a second. So, now that I have everything in place with all the flats, what I'm going to do is pay really close attention down here. Is I am going to select all the layers that I have. Now make sure, if I could underline this with with my words, I would. Make sure you have a copy of the line art on top, because if you do this next step and don't have a copy of the lines, you're going to feel kind of stupid afterwards, because you're going to destroy the lines. You're not going to be able to use them anymore. So make sure you have a copy of the lines here. Select all of these layers that you were just working with, all 5 of these layers, and merge them together. So now all these flats are on a single layer, and the lines are on a separate layer. So now this is a legitimate set of flats right here. This is legit. This is as good as it gets. Because if I make the lines layer visible, reduce its opacity, you'll see, check this out, the fills right here go exactly to the edge. They are to the edge of the line art, exactly to the pixel. So if I take the line art, and if I were to set it to something like linear burn, and really reduce that opacity, I actually get some more vibrantly colored lines. So instead of the lines looking black, they now look purple all around. So, you know, they look more white, they look more green in her eyes, they look really green where the gemstone is. So now not only are the flats nice and vibrant, but the lines are going to be nice and vibrant too. And since the lines mode, or since the mode of the lines layer is set to linear burn, what linear burn allows me to do is if I were to do some rim lighting where there's a really bright highlight, bright highlights will actually make the lines disappear. So let me just do a quick demonstration of that. I just select that right there, move it out like that, lock its layer like that. So I'm just going to do a really quick rudimentary shading thing here. So we have, you know, same with brush mode to screen. Let's say it appears normally, but if I were to put enough time and enough intensity underneath the lines, you'll see that I can still get a good white out of it as well. So when I go to the rim lighting, it'll look like I'm drawing or I am painting literally on top of the lines. So this gives me even more ability to shade much more detailed than I normally would. I'm not as constrained by the lines anymore. But that's just a little tip and trick, because we still have a little bit more cleanup to do on the flats, though you guys probably don't even know it. There are going to be flaws in this, so let's find some. The first thing we want to make sure is that there are no solid black lines in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my color to the defaults. So I just have a solid black right here. And while I have my, let's name this here, while I have my flats layer selected, I'm going to create a very small, at 100% opacity, set to pencil. Alright, as I was saying, I'm going to create a splotch of black right here. And now check this out. I am going to select the color wand, tolerant 0, anti-alias, contiguous, and sample all layers off. Select that black. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Select Menu, Modify, Expand, and expand it by 10, 15, 20, doesn't really matter. And now you see these little bubbles that have appeared in the selection. These are showing me where I missed little specks and pixels of black. So I just go into it, and I just go around. Let's lock the layer opacity right here, so click this icon right here. And I'm just going to go around. Let's see here, hold down Alt to select the color, get those offending black pixels out of the way. Get those done. And then another thing I can do is this is a little bit more complex, but also makes it easier. Same thing, select it, but then hold down Control and press J, which creates a new layer based upon the selection that you just had. So all the black that I had selected is now in its own separate layer right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control, click on the thumbnail of the layer. So now the whole layer is selected, and again, I'm going to go to Select, Modify, Expand. So it's the same exact thing that I had just done before, but now I have greater control because I can lock the opacity of this layer so I don't have to worry about painting over other things with the wrong color. It will only paint the black. Even though the selection is expanded beyond the borders of the black pixels, since the black pixels are in their own layer and that layer's alpha is locked, it will not go outside of wherever the black pixels are located. So let's see here. Yeah, so that one I can just forget about that one because that's nice and disconnected far away from the line art. So last thing I'm going to do, with the color wand selected, again, just select that little black blotch I had made, and really simple, just delete. And go to the flats layer, delete. So let's merge those two layers together. Put that there. Save this image real quickly. And let's give it a really nice background color. Maybe a reddish, pinkish, orangish. I don't know. Move that underneath it so that's behind it. And just open up hue saturation and let's just mess around until we find a color we like. I don't know how well that latex will pop out against the blue. We'll maybe lighten it up just a little bit like that. Yeah, if she's sitting on linens, it can be a little bit dark in the scene. I can go into the flats, and let's say I really don't like the shade of green, which coincidentally I do not. Just keep on nudging until we get it right. Then another quick trick I can do. You'll notice that the colors of the latex really stand out as being different, and I don't really want them to stand out that much. So I'm going to select them all using the color wand with the usual settings of anti-alias, contiguous, and sample all layers unchecked. Let's just check to make sure that I have it all selected. Good. So now that I have it all selected in the flats layer, I'm just going to press Ctrl-J. So again, they are now separated into their own layer, like this. And then I'm going to create a new layer on top of it. I'm going to select just any color, and then I'm going to hold down Alt and Delete. And then I'm going to hold down Alt and click in between the new layer and the separated layer I had just made. So now it's all the same color, and then this new layer, I'm just going to reduce its opacity. So we go from this, and instead of that, let's go like halfway there. So like that. It's still going to be different, but it's a lot less noticeable. So this new layer that we created right here is unifying them. So let's just merge those two together, and while it's still separate from the normal flats layer, let's just check it to make sure I can select all the different parts individually, and I should be able to. That looks just fine. That's fine, that's perfect. Merge them together, and since I got a background color I like, merge those together. And whatever you do, don't merge the lines and the flats together. And should that ever happen, something I always do before I get started is I create a new group. And I'm just going to call it my backup group. And I take these two right here. So I have my flats layer and my lines layer. I'm going to take both of these, I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to click and drag. So I drop them into the backup folder, and then I lock the backup folder. So now, if I mess up the flats or the lines in any way, I have them backed up right here, so I can just go straight to them. And there we have it. This image is flatted. It's done. And I know that there are a lot of extra steps that were taken, and it's a little bit more complex than the usual straightforward flatting method. I understand that completely, but trust me, once you get comfortable and knowledgeable of this flatting method, you will save yourself a lot of time in the long run. Especially when it comes to shading and doing things like rim light around overlapping objects that are the same color, like where her nose overlaps her right cheek. Once you use this method, you'll find yourself working a lot faster and a lot more accurately too. So like I said before, the flats are a very important step in the coloring process, and you have to get them right, because if you don't get the flats right, your shading's going to look a bit wrong as well, and you can't fix bad flats in the shading process. Your flats have to be good. So if there's a lesson to be had from this, flatters, take good heed and take a lot of seriousness in your work and put a lot of effort into it, because the colorist depends on you. And on the flip side, colorists love your flatters. I can't emphasize this enough. You have to love your flatters and all the hard work they do, because not only does flatting suck, not only is it boring, and not only does it leave you with an image that's, you know, not too terribly impressive to the common looker, but it's also very tedious, and it's very labor intensive, and you have to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned and everything is just the right color. So I understand what flatters go through. So anyway, that wraps up this tutorial, and I'll do a quick one here on the actions that I mentioned before. So stand by. I'm going to reset the stream, and thank you guys for paying attention to this. I hope this was really helpful to you. Remember, if you have any questions or comments on this tutorial or any other tutorials, feel free to drop me a message at vest.deviantart.com or at daviddelante@gmail.com. I will see you guys in the next lesson. Thank you all for your patience and your time.